I'm Jamie Jackson with the Daily Signal, and we continue to have an important discussion about the events in the aftermath of Ferguson. And joining me right now is Pastor Jesse Johnson from Emmanuel Bible Church here in the D.C. area. Thanks so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here, Jamie.
Greatly appreciate you talking with us. Lots to get to, because I want to focus on what is the church response to obviously not only the decision in Ferguson, but kind of the aftermath of what we've seen as far as looting and the protesting kind of going to a whole nother level.
Well, you know, a church response is to bring a biblical perspective to what's happening there. You know, the Bible is clear that God has given certain things from military to law enforcement to families, all for the protection of people in society. And we live in a culture, a world that rebels against every level of that authority.
And at the very foundation of a lot of the emotion going on in Ferguson is race. How does the church address that issue in our country?
You know, every church in America still takes on the racial makeup of its neighborhood, of course, and of the cultures that are inside of that church, but it stands united around Jesus Christ as a multi-racial thing. Now, obviously, what our country is going through is bearing the consequences of hundreds of years of racial hypocrisy, of prejudice, of slavery, and all of that comes to the top.
So how do we move forward from here?
Well, you know, I talked to a pastor in Ferguson this week who said he's pled with his people to maintain peace and to trust that being reconciled to Jesus is the way forward. You know, when a person who abuses power in law enforcement comes to faith in Christ, they don't abuse their power anymore. When a person who rebels against government comes to faith in Christ, he doesn't rebel anymore. And that's what unites people back together. And this pastor in Ferguson told me that he feels like his congregation gets it. And even feels like many people in the community get it now, that Ferguson has been opened up to hearing the gospel and an appreciation of the unity that comes in Jesus Christ now in a way that it wasn't before. But so much of the strife, of course, is being imported to the area by people who are seizing on any opportunity to rebel against God-given constraints. And so the church's position now is to, preach the gospel and show the unity we have in Christ and not do harm. You know, a lot of harm is coming from so-called pastors, so-called reverends that don't have churches, that are out there fueling strife for their own personal gains. And I hope that people understand that those people don't speak for the Lord, they speak for themselves.
Pastor Jesse Johnson, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we want to keep the conversation going. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook at Daily Signal. I'm Jamie Jackson for the Daily Signal.